So Jimmy writes, Sola Scriptura is Latin for by Scripture alone, and it's one of the key slogans of the Protestant Reformation. I often explain it by saying that it's the idea we need to produce Christian doctrine by Scripture alone, meaning, among other things, that every Christian doctrine must be explicitly or implicitly contained in the Bible. Okay, I mean, so far so good. There's not anything necessarily I disagree with. We'll see where this goes on. He writes, this is how I understood it as an evangelical, and this understanding seems confirmed by experience, as Catholics are regularly confronted by Protestant Christians with the question, where is that in the Bible? A demand to produce scripture verses as proof of some particular Catholic belief or practice. In recent decades, a common response by Catholic apologists is to turn this question around and say, where is Sola Scriptura in the Bible? The point is, if every doctrine must be provable from the Bible, then Sola Scriptura must be provable. If it isn't, then it's a self-refuting doctrine, he writes. Now I've got something I want to disagree with Jimmy Akin on here. And maybe he starts with a too broad definition as well. Maybe this is his definition. Maybe Jimmy Akin's definition of Sola Scriptura is that every Christian doctrine must be explicitly or implicitly contained in the Bible. If that's his definition, now it's not explicitly clear to me because he doesn't say, here's how I define it. But if that's his definition, then it's a wrong definition. That is a wrong definition because it's about the final authority or the infallible authority, not the only authority. It's about the infallible authority. Okay, so here's where I get some disagreement with Jimmy. He writes, if every doctrine must be provable from the Bible, then Sola Scriptura must also be provable. If it isn't, then it's a self-refuting doctrine. Well, again, if we understand Sola Scriptura to be the idea that the Bible alone is the infallible authority for Christian doctrine, well, we might think, for example, that there are ancient councils and creeds which are fallible authorities. Let me explain this again. My definition of Sola Scriptura was that the Bible alone is the infallible authority for Christian doctrine. Again, the Bible alone is infallible. So you might think that there are fallible authorities, but authorities nonetheless. And if it's the case that there are fallible authorities on Christian doctrine, then it could be the case that Sola Scriptura itself is a fallible doctrine. It's capable of being wrong as a logical necessity, but it's not. It's an accurate one. It's an accurate, fallible doctrine. Does that make sense? So you might think that something is capable of error, but still accurate. It's possible to be wrong, but you're not. Do you see that distinction? It's an important distinction. And it's important because we can see here how Akin has made a misstep in his rationale, already critiquing his misunderstanding of Sola Scriptura. He's already got a misunderstanding that that Sola Scriptura is the idea that every Christian doctrine must be explicitly or implicitly contained in the Bible. Again, that's not the right definition. It's not about the fallible authority of Scripture. Because observe, when we look at Luther and others, right? For Luther, it's Scripture and reason must fit with what the church teaches. And when it doesn't, that's when the church has erred. Again, Akin's wrong right off the bat here. He's got a logical misstep. He thinks that Sola Scriptura itself must be found in Scripture. But that doesn't follow logically. That's a non sequitur. We might believe in doctrines that are not found in Scripture. We only need the Scripture, as we've stated, to be infallible. Doctrines themselves could be fallible and found from some other inference, a rational inference. Now, I think that the infallibility of Scripture does find biblical support. So just to be clear, when he says that it's got to be provable and that if it isn't, then it's a self-refuting doctrine, we could even take him up on that challenge and I think still succeed. But if he doesn't, if the challenge succeeds from his end, he's still inaccurate. He's still wrong because he hasn't understood Sola Scriptura properly. Let's continue on. He writes, how can Protestants respond to this challenge? One approach is to point to verses that a Protestant thinks prove Sola Scriptura right, just as I explained. But this has not been successful, he asserts. There are no verses that state the doctrine outright, and the arguments by implication are weak and unpersuasive. Okay, so there he's giving his own take, his own assessment, that the arguments by implication are weak and unpersuasive. Well, what if I think the arguments by implication are strong and persuasive? So arguments, for example, from 2 Timothy about Scripture being divinely inspired. All Scripture is breathed out by God. And we can make a logical argument that Scripture being breathed out by God, that which is breathed out by God is incapable of error, and that because it is breathed out by God, and the teachings of councils and the authority of bishops is not breathed out by God, therefore they're not of the same authority. So you can make an argument and find it strong and persuasive that Sola Scriptura is true.